Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday night edition of UGA Sports Live. My name is Radi Nabulsi. I'm joined by Dayne Young and, of course, Jim Donnan, the former Georgia Bulldogs head coach, the only reason you were all tuning in. And we love having Donnan After Dark, as it was called recently. We love having Coach Donnan on in the evening. He was busier earlier today, as was I. I was launching three of our staffers all up to the NFL Combine, and we have a lot to talk about with the NFL Combine starting this week. Actually, starts yesterday. I mean, it starts tomorrow, so we should have some fun stuff from that. We've had a lot of guys covering it, but news-wise, it's been very, very busy the last week with Georgia having to replace a couple coaches. So Brian McClendon's off to the NFL. Dell McGee's the new head coach at Georgia State. And Georgia has a pair of new coaches in there. So, of course, who to ask about this? Who could be a better person to ask than our own Jim Donnan, the former head coach, who's hired and fired plenty of coaches in his career, and he knows a lot of guys. He was the first person I thought of when we broke the news that these coaches were coming. So, Coach, give me your take on Georgia's new coaches.
Congratulate you on getting the scoop on these guys. You must have a little birdie somewhere, but that was pretty impressive. I don't think the fans sometimes take you as serious as they need to before you breaking out. That's pretty impressive to project who they might be, and then those guys come out. But anyhow, changing coaches is always a difficult time. It's hard on the players because they've developed a bond with them. It's hard on the families that are moving and having to create new friends. And but at the same time, it's a great opportunity because new coach comes in, doesn't have any built-in ideas about any of the players, and maybe some of these guys will blossom. And the one example I'll make, we had a guy at Marshall who never played for much for us, and he just didn't gel with our coach. And a new guy came in, and the kid ended up getting drafted in the third round by the Jaguars at center. And I've always busted Selfo about it ever since. I thought you could analyze talent, but everybody makes mistakes, But I thought that's something I just want to bring out, that all of a sudden a guy like Arian Smith, new lease on life. Whoever it might be, running back wise, Cash Jones, Rod Robinson, whatever it might be. But anyhow, I thought knowing that we had a show tonight, to go over and ask somebody that probably had an idea about the coaches. And so I asked a couple of maintenance men over there, and they were ready to roll. But no,
you're not going to trick me this time.
A guy that used to play for me went to Hawaii last week and got back, and so I just went over there to say hello to him and have just.
Okay, so you asked Kirby himself?
Yeah, and then I made a point to talk to Coley a little bit too. I didn't get to meet the running back coach, but anyhow, I felt like I'm not really breaking any confidence, but Kirby was concerned about the lack of personnel out there to come in here and supplement these two guys. I mean, supplant them, come in for them, because both of them have just been really good for Georgia in so many ways, not just coaching, recruiting, but player development, interacting with the community, doing so much for the university itself. And guys like that aren't out there. So it was imperative, particularly after we lost the second guy. And I really want to congratulate both of them. That's a tremendous honor to go be a pro coach. There's a lot of people would like to be the secondary coach for somebody, receiver coach, but B-Mac's a growing star, 40 years old, has got a good resume, already been a coordinator, has coached at Oregon as well as some of the other places. And congratulations to him. But for Dell McGee, I've always been a big Dell backer. I see some of the things he does that a lot of us don't. And he'll do a tremendous job. That was just a home run hire for Georgia State, because I guarantee he'll build a wall around the state for the non-Power 5 players. I just think that they'll just reap the benefits of his relationships. And it was smart by him getting Jim Chaney and Kevin Shearer, two guys he knew that are older, that can coach these younger coaches that he's going to bring in there. And he's going to have a really good staff to go along with him. But going on to, I just think Kirby realized once we lost both of them that, you like the familiarity. If you look at some of the people that we've had and the way they've come in and moved into the system, that makes a lot of difference. But if somebody can just come in and hit the ground running, as compared to really having to learn so many of the things that we do are different than most places. Number one, our speed limit's about 95 and a 35 and everything we do. So you got to get used to that and the expectancy level. But in James Coley, you got a guy, the pros way outweigh any of the negative. The season wasn't great, but a lot of things happened that were out of his control. And, I think he's a very good teacher, an excellent recruiter. And I've seen him coach one-on-one. And one of the best recommendations I think he could have gotten was the fact that Mike Bobo was not associated with Georgia at the time. He was a coach at Colorado State, and he came back to see his old roommate during spring break. Kirby, and if he could watch practice, and he actually went to a couple meetings that James was having with the quarterbacks and watched him coach on the field. So when it came up for the interview process, Mike said he'd seen what he did when he didn't even know him. Watch him teach, watch him coach, things that you got to do in a meeting to teach the quarterbacks and coach receivers on the field. And then, of course, Kirby knows. Just look at the background. I saw some of the names that you listed that he recruited, not just receivers, but players. And he has an unbelievable contact point there in the Miami area. I mean, and one thing that I always remember about James Coley, Caleb Williams, we were in the driver's seat. His family loved him. His dad was here for an unofficial visit and was talking about him. And that things kind of negated. I've lost a little bit in the translate when he left. But the point is, this guy can go get them. And as far as the back coach, he came in to interview for the receiver job because he had some prior work with Tyson Summers, who is Mike knows from coaching with him at Georgia Southern at Colorado State, and Tyson is the defensive coach up at Western Kentucky. Just prolific numbers up there under Helton. And this guy did a terrific job coaching, not to mention what he's done in the state of Georgia as a high school coach. When you can look at some of the schools coaching, some of the real predominant schools in South Georgia, and then moved over to Tech and had that Singleton guy last year. And so we're looking at a guy that can come in and have recognition in the state as far as high school coaches. He's inheriting an unbelievable room of players when you add the three newcomers and the transfer. So not as big a transition having Coley come in and then also putting the other in there. So I know I'm talking a lot, but I did feel like I can add to this program just because that's the thought process there that if you look at some of our success here, Muschamp moving in, Bobo moving in, when Hankton left, back, when the O-line coach left, Luke Searles. Same thing here. Just continuity is going to be great. And I hope everybody's objective enough to know that you're going to base everything on what the coach thinks. And if Kirby believes enough in it, then that's good enough for me. But even if he even if I had some consternation about it, I'm not going to worry about it. It's like I tell our fans, I'm pulling for Georgia, no matter how they play, and you can find something wrong about everything, but there's so much right about it. I'm going to just tell you this right now. When I walked over there today and looked at those guys on the field and saw what we had out there stretching, I enjoyed my dinner tonight.
No, you're right. Josh Crawford is
we passed the eyeball test. We passed the get off the bus test, and we passed the energy test. These kids are hungry. They know they were close last year, and they know what we got ahead of us. Challenging, but man, I mean, if we were in a contest, we would be right up there with Miss America. I promise you that, because we look good in uniforms. We look really good.
I mean, and you just added the -- 1 class to the group, so you saw a bunch of freshmen there. Well, not only freshmen, but the transfers. You got 22 new guys over there.
Right. The transfers, but we've talked about the fact that Kirby got 20 of those guys already here, and so I recognize a couple of them between December and now because Svelte. I mean, they dropped some severe poundage. Sinclair's got them rolling.
Well, this is you're talking about how James Coley will fit right back into it. He knows what Kirby wants. That to me, you're able to get a guy who, I know people were mad about his tenure as an offensive coordinator. He had a bunch of busted up wide receivers that year, remember, as well. But there's never been any question as can he recruit? And you're getting one of the elite, premier, former offensive coordinators, elite recruiters back as a position coach. That's a win-win. And you touched on the fact that Josh Crawford had been is well known in the state, some of the places he's been. Let me know if you've heard of these programs: Colquitt County High School, Valdosta High School, Lee County High School, Jefferson County High School, Greater Atlanta Christian. The guy's been all over the state. He's
plus he's got Did he have a master's degree from Georgia?
He does have a master's degree from Georgia, and I know a lot of people.
Dayne Young's got one now.
Yeah. The guy, everyone says, well, he's a wide receivers coach at Georgia Tech. Why are we taking the Georgia Tech wide receivers coach to coach our running backs? He was a running back in college. I think he'll be okay. Kirby Smart was also a running backs coach for a while there too. So at Georgia,
you can coach.
That's my point, and that's what I was going to ask you. I'm like, guys get typecast.
I feel like I know as much about the passing game as anybody that's watching this show tonight, unless
I don't want to cut you off.
I think we may have lost his internet connection there for a moment.
No worries. So Josh Crawford has been he can coach a number of positions. Great offensive mind, from what I'm told. And I had multiple people. We put this on the board at UGASports.com. We listed a number of comments that we got from a coach who's, if I mention him, everybody would know who he is. Plus some folks in the media, and they're like, "Hey, Josh Crawford," unsolicited. They just reached out to me and said, "That is a good hire. That's strong." And they don't have to. If there was a bad hire, they'd be like, "What the hell's Kirby doing? Is he drunk?" They're not gonna pull punches with me and kind of tell me.
Let me ask you this: do you think Kirby knows Buster Faulkner?
He does know Buster Faulkner.
You think Kirby would have asked Buster about this guy?
I think he would have.
And even though Buster is loyal to Georgia Tech, he's loyal to Kirby too. I mean, Kirby helped his career. I mean, the guy went from. I mean, he's making a lot of money now. His family's in a good situation because he didn't have to move over there to Tech. His boys playing at North Oconee. And he wouldn't BS Kirby, and he wouldn't BS me either because I asked him. And so I'm just telling you, not that they needed me to ask him about him, but I just want to know. But I asked him, I asked Tyson Summers about him. And these are guys I trust. They've coached with him. And we we definitely lost two really good guys. There's no question about it. But
yeah, you lose Brian McClendon and Dale McGee. That's two huge losses. Plus, you lost Will Muschamp, coach.
yeah,
I know he's still within the program, but
and we lost the Northeast.
I'm about to say, and then you lost Fran Brown. So you lost four guys, and you're replacing them with four. You could be replacing them with four unknown quantities.
Right. We helped ourselves in a lot of ways from the standpoint of just replace them with good guys. But I remember when I told you about the time that Coley went up there and to New Jersey and showed me this big kid in the weight room, and unfortunately, we all know what happened to him when he passed away. But Coley's the one that found him, diamond in the rough. But if I was hiring a staff right now to be my coaches, I would hire Coley as receiver coach over anybody I've ever had. So I'm not worried about it.
There you go. So people that want to say, well, he's not offensive coordinator. Hey, you got Mike Bobo, so stop worrying about that. I'm looking at you, Hope. I know.
He's done some good things as a coordinator too. I mean, what do you think about the Baylor game? That's pretty damn. What about that Florida game that Jake had such a great game when we had to have it when our defense couldn't stop them? I mean, but you know, we had some but I don't want to defend that. But I'm just telling you, if you're a Georgia fan tonight, and hopefully our basketball team's going to come back here, but you ought to go to bed tonight and have some sweet dreams. We know what kind of football team we're going to have.
Sure. I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting, Coach, just how small the coaching circles are, because when you say Tyson Summers, all right, so 2015, Georgia's playing Georgia Southern in Sanford Stadium, and Georgia Southern should have won that game. Georgia won it in overtime. Georgia Southern was the better team that day. Georgia found a way to win. After that season, now I talked to Dale McGee before that game. He's assistant for Georgia Southern at the time, and he told me, he said, I want to be a head coach one day. So I'm glad to see this day realized for him that he's a college head coach.
Close on that job. He was close.
Well, Georgia Southern should have hired him when Willie Fritz goes to Tulane, and he won the bowl game as the interim head coach at Georgia Southern. They then chose to hire Tyson Summers, who didn't work out down there. But Dale McGee gets 8 years at Georgia after that. He went to Tulane for a little bit before Kirby Smart pulled him over on his staff. I mean, I think it was like a week that he was committed to Tulane.
On the recommendation of Dale McGee was recommended to him by Tyson.
Yeah.
And just like Sinclair was too. Scott Sinclair worked with Tyson down at UCF, and we see where that's at. But so we got a good deal here. Let's go on. Has anybody got any question they want to ask?
The last thing,
I'm not the guru here. It's the not everything, and just because I say it's good, hey, if you got something that you want to ask about it, ask me. I'm not going to chew your ass out about it. I mean, hey, but I feel good about. If you look at Kirby's coaches that he's hired here, for the most part, a phenomenal rate of success with the guys he's hired. Phenomenal.
When I can tell you, Georgia Southern's worried about what Georgia State just did right now.
Oh, I guarantee you, everybody in the league is, because he can go get the players, and also going to be tough portal too. It'll be tough.
Well, you're talking about a phenomenal thing. I want to mention our friends over at Academia Brewing Company, because they are a phenomenal place to go get a good beer and go get a good meal. The beers they have there are award-winning. Their IQ IPA that everyone likes, they have a 2 times version of that just came out. I can't wait to try that. It's been a minute since I've been there. I've been going back and forth between this house and the one in Athens, trying to get some stuff squared away. I want to get back to Academia. I got to get my fix in. I've been missing them too much. They've got a big party tomorrow, the Breast Fest kickoff party. So if you want to swing by the Academia Brewing Company tomorrow night at Spines for the Purpose. So the 28th between 6 and 8 p.m. So here's your 24-hour notice or 22-hour notice. to get over to Academia Brewing Company for their kickoff party. And they're always doing stuff like that. There's always some sort of charity that they're raising money for, or, they had the big UFC fight on the other night, or they're doing something for Valentine's Day, or Mardi Gras celebrations. I'm just telling you, they'll have something for Easter. They'll have something for St. Patrick's Day. There's always fun stuff going on. And now that the weather's, we're getting out, February's almost over. You get into March, April, May, spring in Athens and Academia. You can't beat it. Can't beat it at all. I also want to mention our friends at Athens Ford. If right now you can get an additional $500 off towards your trade, if you want to trade a vehicle in over there, they got 730 vehicles on the lot. Plenty of the stuff going on at Athens Ford right now. When it comes to inventory, there's a lot of inventory there. Tons of Broncos, tons of Ford 150s, 250s, Explorers, Edge, you name it. They've got the Lightnings out there, the EVs, the EV trucks that'll snap your head back when you hit the gas. So a lot of great vehicles on the lot at Athens Ford. $500 discount on your trade-in, or additional $500 for your trade-in. $500 discount for students, $500 discount for militaries, veterans, and active members can qualify for an additional $500 off of new Fords. And of course, everybody that buys a new vehicle or a pre-owned one under about 80,000 miles can get the lifetime powertrain warranty. So check out our friends at Athens Ford. You'll be glad that you did.
We're going to talk mostly about NFL Combine in this segment, but I want to wrap the assistant coach conversation quickly because I pulled some sound bites from previous media availabilities from James Coley and Josh Crawford, just so our fans can either be reminded or get an idea of who these guys are, what they sound like, what they say. And so the first one, this is going to be from James Coley. This is 4 years ago when he was calling plays at Georgia. He's discussing the Georgia philosophy, Kirby Smart's philosophy on players and calling plays.
Coach Smart is all about players and not plays. I think he definitely preaches that to us. And sometimes as coaches, you forget and you're like, man, this scheme is really intriguing, but are your players touching the ball within this scheme? So, I don't know that there's been an adjustment. I've been here several years. I think that the philosophy that we have here at Georgia is that, who's touching the ball and are they the guys that are going to give us the biggest impact? But you definitely got to play for towards your strength. So I've always been a part of that where I've been. So
I think that's going to play well with Mike Bobo of having those discussions in pregame. And then from Josh Crawford, the thing that I think we were all talking about with Dell McGee that was so good, putting up that wall around the state of Georgia, the experience as a high school coach in the state of Georgia. Here's what Josh Crawford said last year about that when he gets the job at Georgia Tech.
That's one thing that I was very excited. Obviously I spent 10 years in this state coaching high school football and some really, really good programs. And so that allowed me to establish some really good relationships with a lot of coaches in this state and also have an opportunity to coach a lot of good players. And so from coaching in the state, that helped me from a relationship standpoint. And then I was very fortunate, to be in some of the top programs in the state and the Southeast, which I felt like prepared me from a coaching standpoint, from a work ethic standpoint, to be able to, translate, at this level and do a good job. And so I'm very grateful to that. I say that all the time. I'm very grateful for my high school tenure. I think it's had a big time effect, on, any success that I've been able to have at this level.
That's got to be music to Kirby Smart's ears, Coach.
Oh, yeah. I mean, to me, you always want experience and you always want, guys that have been around good programs. But at the same time, some of these guys that have been on the back road, so to speak, and not ever been on the super highs like you're getting ready to be on, have really had to work hard at teaching technique and not having quite the type of players they're going to have here. And you're just a better teacher coming in. That's just is. I mean, I felt like I knew a lot about coaching until I had to go to Marshall and do all the things. I mean, because the quality of players that we had were good, but they're just not like Oklahoma.
No, you're right. When you don't have when your players aren't as strong, you have to you got to get the most out of them. So that's a great point when you're bouncing around. People go, well, where's he coached before? Hey, sometimes if he's coached at schools that aren't that good, he's had to get more out of them. He had to become a better coach if you want to win. So the fact that he's actually coached at 5 really good high schools, Western Kentucky, Georgia Tech, coming to Georgia, that's a guy who's gotten the most out of his players. You saw what he did with Singleton at Georgia Tech. You give him Georgia's running back room.
Yeah, I'm sure he talked to Don Blaylock about him too. Kirby, he doesn't leave any stone unturned, and but all of a sudden we're going to open up with Clemson, and we got the ex-Clemson offensive coordinator, and we're going to end up with Georgia Tech at the end of the year, and we got a Georgia Tech coach. So I mean that doesn't hurt.
It does. The last thing I'll say about this before we move on to the NFL Combine, the fact that you got James Coley away from South Carolina, that doesn't hurt either because he's not, recruiting and taking good guys to South Carolina. So that's also a win-win. So.
Yeah, that's true. But and it's tough on South Carolina. I know because you just hired a new coach and you're ready to go and all, but at the same time, 99 people out of 100 would have taken that job. And it's nothing against Shane or South Carolina, but you got a chance to coach at Georgia. Come on.
Amen. All right, speaking of coaching in Georgia, you get to coach guys like Brock Bowers, Amarius Mims, Lad McConkey, Kamari Lassiter. 11 of your guys have been invited to the NFL Combine. And, Coach, I know that we mentioned as we opened the show, we have some UGA Sports staffers who will be there for all the interviews that we get to see. They'll be there for most of the drills and such. And they will be gathering news not only from Georgia players, but maybe from some guys who played against Georgia. We'll get thoughts from them. I want to get your thoughts, though, on talk to me about some of these guys who are at the Combine, what they need to do, what the scuttlebutt's going to be about them. Just give me your thoughts about them. And let's start right off the bat with Brock Bowers.
Yeah, I think we got 3 legit first-round guys, 2 guys that maybe could go quick, maybe even in the first. But, Brock Bowers, Mims, and Lassiter. Bowers is just going to be a workout warrior there. Once they see all the things he does, he'll just wow them with the way he runs, the way he catches us. He'll be good on the weights. He'll be great on the interviews. And as far as just the football acumen that he possesses, just a can't-miss player. I mean, he's Travis Kelce reincarnated, but maybe not quite as tall, but probably faster. Got a good catch radius and shows intense toughness the way he came back. Marius Mims, to me, is one of the best college pass blockers that I've ever seen. Has got unbelievable feet to go with his upper torso. Very seldom gets beaten in practice or games. He has limited tape in the games, but he's got a lot of tape against Walker and Carter and all those guys in practice that the scouts have looked at. He's legit top 15 guy and can't miss. Kamari Lassiter, to me, cover guy that loves to take on challenges, has sniffed out a lot of guys and just stuffed them. And he's what you're looking for up there. And the fact that he's tough, knows football, and has been trained by a guy that's put a lot of guys in the pros in Kirby. So those are the 3. The other projection I might, McConkey could, as long as he gets through the physical and shows that his back's okay, then he's going to wear all these guys out in one-on-one and stuff like that because he's just such a route technician, and he got really good speed to go with his quickness, tremendous hands. Plus, he can return punts and will do well in the football talking stages there. Just they'll say, hey, this guy could come in here and be the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce. You know what I mean? He won the Danny Werfel Award because of his ability to react with the community. He was in the good works thing for the AFCA, for each school picks one and in different areas. So I'd say he's late first, early to mid second if his back clears everything. Then you got Bullard, who I think is going to surprise everybody just because they don't realize how good he can cover. He got so much work as the star guy, the nickel guy, that safeties just don't get. And so did Tyke Smith. So he's going to be able to do better one-on-one than most safeties that are used to playing 2 deep hash coverage or 3 deep middle and zone and all that. And pros like that because when you get inside the red zone or get inside the 10, you got to play a lot of man, and they're locked into some backs or tight ends, and he can do that. Plus, he's a stone cold killer tackler. I mean,
He killed a man in the red zone, Coach.
He can get you on the ground in a New York minute, and he can put you there quickly. And you can't miss tackles. If you miss tackles in the pros, those guys are history. And you don't see many guys make long runs in the pros because they don't miss tackles. That's why they look at these backs that can get 4 and 5 yards, because these linebackers like Quay Walker and Roquan Smith and safeties up there, they put you on the ground. So this guy will do that. Tyke, I really think this year was huge for him. Like his confidence coming off the ACL a couple years ago, he played so much better at Star. Some of the same characteristics that I talked about with his man coverage skills is going to help him there, and he'll be a good safety. Plus, he's a preeminent, I'm talking about big time special teams guy that they're just going to love the fact that he can come in there. And when you got 53 guys on your team, some of them that aren't first team are going to have to play special teams, and they look at him like that, and he'll be outstanding there. So then we got 2-3 more offensive players, offensive backs. I like Edwards. He's going to be a sneaky guy that's going to surprise them how quick he is, and the fact that he can catch the ball, and he's pretty tough physically, and he'll do good on the weights too. He'll surprise them how much he can bench. Just the size limitation's always going to be a little bit of an issue, but you look at what James Cook's been able to do. He's not as fast as James, but the Georgia tradition helps him though. I mean, all of a sudden, hey, this year's Zamir White surfaced when he got a chance, and he saw what he could do for L.A. And then you got Swift and Cook, and of course Chubb and Michelle. I mean, it just goes on and on. And then Milton, I just think, is probably the sleeper of all the guys we got, because everything's ahead of him. He's not as injury prone as probably what happened, but he did have a lot of injuries. Some of them, when you get a MCL injury on your knee, hard to come back from it. Same thing with a hamstring. But he really showed some hammer and tong technique down the stretch, breaking tackles, making big runs, explosive runs. He knows protections, high character kid, really high character, high intellect, can do things, at different levels as far as playing in a pistol, playing in a split back, playing in the eye. He can line up at fullback and block. I think he's 3rd, 4th round guy that could go even higher maybe. He's just a big-time prospect to me. Roseme, what are you talking about? This guy is money in the bank. Talked to Andy Reid a little bit about him during the Senior Bowl. He just has an unbelievable catch radius. You think about all those routes he made on ran the 6 route over the middle, and clutch made the catch. Is good in the red zone. Had a really good Senior Bowl. He can block. He can play special teams. He'll get drafted. Just a question of what team needs him. And who else we got? Zion Logan. I can't remember him.
Zion Logan, Cedric Van Pran.
Well, I didn't want to leave anybody out. I'm just trying. I got a bad memory here.
I got the screen in front of me, so it's easier for me.
I sure can't read that little stuff. But, of course, Van Pran, what are you talking about? Steady Eddie. I mean, this guy's played forever. Just really good at recognizing defensive fronts. Could be governor of the state of Louisiana. Just unbelievable communication and leadership skills. What you need up there to call the fronts and make the protection calls. Probably needs to get a little stronger for pro football, but got good feet, and he's going to be a guy that'll go up there kind of like the one we had for the Patriots, just play forever. I mean, he's going to be a center up there that can play. And, of course, Zion didn't play thousands of reps, but, he really took advantage of his opportunities. And when you look at the history of Georgia defenders up there, that background is going to help him. And he's a big body that'll test well and get along good on the interview. So we're going to be well represented in the draft. It's going to be another heyday for Georgia. All 11 of these guys are going to go. So that's about all I know about them.
Yeah, that'll do for now. Speaking of Zion Logue, he actually starts everything off tomorrow. He'll be the only guy that's being interviewed tomorrow is Zion Logue, so he'll start it off for the Bulldogs. And then
when do they start the testing? Is it Thursday or
Thursday?
Yeah.
So the guys that meet with the media tomorrow wind up doing like they'll do their physicals and stuff.
It's a great week. Great week for football buffs. I mean, it's kind of like the Senior Bowl. I mean, right after lunch, you can watch guys run the 40, jump, do all that stuff. I mean, that's my kind of day. I'm sure beats watching as the world turns.
Well, and a lot of this stuff can be overhyped or overrated, but Roddy, we remember Chris Conley's combine and how much that helped him. And you see that he's still playing in the NFL, making playoff catches.
What was that? 47.
Unbelievable vertical jump, and
vertical jump was through the building.
Yeah, and that's that's another thing that old Kirby Paul Smart. Some of his visionary stuff is good, but I will share with you. A couple years ago, we had a couple people that came out early that didn't get drafted very good, that thought they were going to be drafted or declared, but didn't even hardly get a free agent. And what he did was he started having a combine in the spring for our team that's exactly like the NFL, and they tested them. And they did everything at the NFL Combine, but then they were able to project your score against what people are being drafted. So pretty much tells you, hey, you think you're going to get drafted with this? This is what you got to do. And it was very smart, very smart.
To that point, there are a lot of guys that go into this, and it's more and more juniors every year. And they think that, oh, well, I'm really good at what I do and that therefore I need to go. And sometimes they get a good draft grade. Sometimes they don't. But you can see when they walk through the Indianapolis Convention Center and there's a group of like 20 defensive linemen, and the guys that know they're going, they just walk through completely, the way they carry themselves, complete confidence. They know they're going high. Maybe some of those juniors that came out early, you see them, the eyes are going side to side. They're sucking in their gut a little bit. They're trying to walk a little bit taller on the balls of their feet. They're like, holy shit, what did I get into? And you can see, I can point him out. And I'm like, I don't know who that guy is. And then his lanyard flips over and you're like, oh yeah, that's that junior from that smaller school.
Here's the other thing that is never entered into the picture is the fact that these guys are looking 5th, 6th, 7th round thinking, I need to get out there and start getting some money and everything. Well, now they're getting paid in college. And if they stick around, they might make even more the next year. And they're not sacrificing a lot because they're getting paid. You see the difference? And
huge, yeah.
But the other, conversely, if you do go, then you're 1 year closer to getting that second contract, which means that you got to be up there 4 years to get the second contract. So if you stay here another year, it's going to put you behind on that. But
well, Coach, let me ask you: if Carson Beck would have gone pro, do you think he would have been a first-round pick?
I think it would have been close because there's so many. You listen to these guys talk about we need quarterbacks, and there's not a lot of them out there. I think he would have been close to it, and he would have enhanced himself at the tryouts when they saw his arm strength, and they can go put him on the board and watch tape with him because he's been coached pro pros. You know, he had been running the RPOs and all that stuff. We run a few, but we run pro stuff with all the protection schemes and the hots and the scats and all that. And you wouldn't have to teach him all that. He's going to be way ahead from that standpoint.
So potentially a first-round pick, definitely a second-round pick, if not. If Georgia fans have anything to complain about this offseason, they need to lean on the fact that Georgia kept a first- or second-round quarterback talent.
Yeah, they did. They had to keep him with our schedule. I mean, too much of a deal there. I mean,
I can't imagine looking at this schedule. And that's nothing against Brock Vandegrift. I love him. I've covered him. I've coached against him. I think he's a great kid. Love his family. Love his dad. But you got to feel better after the year that Carson Beck had.
But I feel like Brock could have done it. And I feel like Gunner can. And
again, I love Gunner. He's a great kid. I got nothing against him. But on the road, I want that experience.
I think we win 9 or 10 with Puglitsky right now. I mean, you talking about guy goes up to him. He said, "What's your nickname?" He said, "Machine Gun." And they ask him, but I got a brother named Ryan who's got a Tommy gun. He's got a Tommy gun now. I mean, woo.
We've seen him. He can throw. If you check out if you're on this YouTube channel, I know we're putting this on Twitter and Facebook as well. But if you go by the UGA Sports YouTube channel, check it out. Type in Ryan Puglisi and look for his highlights. You'll see a kid that can spin it. So
yeah, but when you got your own players, I mean, you got guys like Warren Brinson, and I think Warren's one of the most personable guys I've ever met here at Georgia. Just got a gift for talking on, in public. And I was watching something one day, and he was talking about the freshmen around there, that came in for Christmas for the bowl game, and he said everybody got eyes turned pretty quick when he was on the scout team, and Ryan laid a couple of them out there. This is a D lineman talking about this kid whistling the ball. So I mean, he got their attention real quick.
Well, he's the first quarterback Georgia took, and they turned down a 5-star to get him. So been very impressed with Ryan.
I don't know what happened on that, but I'm glad we got who we got.
Yeah. No, I'm not talking about the whole rail. I'm talking about saying. So.
Oh yeah.
He wanted to commit, and Georgia said, "No, we're taking this kid first."
Yeah. In our own way, we turned down Raiola because we didn't we didn't give him what he wanted.
Exactly that. Speaking of spinning it, I want to mention our friends at Europack, because they take that dough and they spin it out, and then put the mozzarella on it, put the sauce and the mozzarella, whatever you want. The Your Pie experience is a completely customizable experience. You walk in, you tell them what type of dough you want. There's multiple ones out there. You tell them what toppings you want, what sauce you want. You can get as many toppings as you want. You can completely customize it, or they have some favorites. And they have a new favorite that I wanted to tell you about. Spicy barbecue pulled pork. This is on a pizza. It's a spicy barbecue pulled pork. So has pulled pork, red onions, mozzarella, cilantro, pickled jalapenos, and barbecue sauce all brought together in this original combination new pizza that they have, one of their signature pizzas. And, of course, they have the Nat and the Ishka and the Southern Heat. They have a ton of, crowd favorites, if you will, that you can walk in and have them. And even on the crowd favorites, they'll ask you, do you want everything that it comes with? And you can add certain things, take certain things off. But this spicy barbecue pulled pork pizza looks good. So try that when you get a chance. We also, when we mentioned Your Pie, we mentioned the fact that that is a franchise, and there's a ton of franchises out there. If you're like, hey, I'd like to get into franchising, but I don't know that I want a Your Pie, which you should do, because if you want to make a lot of money, open up a Your Pie franchise. But if you're not sure, check out myperfectfranchise.net. Andy Ludecki, the guy that runs it, he has put a ton of our readers into their own businesses. And there's a lot you can do with the different franchises out there. It is a daunting task to go from your job now to being a franchise owner. So reach out to Andy and he'll walk you through it. Do you want a home-based business? Do you want a non-home-based business? Do you want a service with heavy outbound sales requirements? Do you want a light retail? Do you want big retail? The point is, there are so many different variations and styles and concepts. It's too much for somebody who doesn't do that every day to look into and figure out the right one for them. Go to a guy whose only job it is to get you into the right franchise, and you don't have to pay him anything. So reach out to myperfectfranchise.net, talk to Angela Becky. He will get you squared away. Email, text, however you want to reach out to him, call him directly, and Andy will take great care of you at myperfectfranchise.net.
Coach, I did want to ask you in the combine, is there an advantage for these Georgia players that some of their assistant coaches from the past are now part of the coaching staffs of these NFL teams? I'm thinking of the Todd Munkins, now Brian McClendon, if he likes any of these receivers. Those relationships, I know Kirby Smart and a lot of the current Georgia coaches have those with NFL people, but the fact that previous coaches with these current players, how much does that help in this process?
Well, it always helps a little bit. Let's just say you go into a interview with the Ravens and then there's Munkin there. It's just not somebody that, all of a sudden you getting ready to meet him and he can carry the conversation right off the bat. And we had a big plus today, Eddie Gordon, who was a big help to our O-line here and then got the UAB job, just took assistant O-line job with the Green Bay Packers. So there's another guy that can talk about Van Pran to them or whoever, and those coaches meet together up there and they talk about kids. I mean, Radi was there. I mean, it's coaches convention and they compare notes about them and it's good. And the other thing is they've already seen some of them at the combine. At the Senior Bowl. So, but that's a good question. That definitely will help them a little bit. But the biggest thing is they know that they've played in the pro system, offense and defense and special teams, and they've been coached at a pro level as far as the drills and techniques that they need to carry over to the next level.
Let's get some questions from UGAsports.com from UGA Alum 95. Question for Coach. What are your thoughts on Georgia's D-line this season, especially against the run game?
I think it's going to be good just because of the linebackers we got. Going to be really strong against the run, and that's going to help at the front. We won't have to cover up when we have some injuries at linebacker like we did last year. And I think the that they got and they're coming back, the fact that Stackhouse is coming back is going to help Hall and some of these other guys make a move. So I think our D-line will be good. And then some of the moves using Michael Williams in a different role too will help us get the best 11 on the field.
1970 Dog wanted to apologize for missing the show live. He wanted to attend his grandson's soccer game tonight. So I assured him he can watch it later. And that's fine.
No, you're either here or you're not.
Yeah, wonder where they're playing the night game, eh? Pretty good.
I guess so. NBA Timber Dog, in looking at coaching hires, how does Kirby Smart balance evaluating one, recruiting capability versus two, player development when picking the right candidate?
Well, if you can't recruit, you can't coach. I mean, to me, people have a tendency to say typecast the guy as a recruiter or a coach. Let me tell you something. You better be recruiting every player on your team the whole time you're here. By that, working with him, working with his family, working with his academic pursuits, getting to know his girlfriend, whatever it might be. You're always constantly recruiting the young man on your team. And then as far as coaching them, you have to have a skill level that has the ability to recognize somebody when you go out and evaluate them based on what the needs are of the fundamentals and the techniques of your position. So I don't ever get too caught up in, well, this guy's just a good coach, but he can't recruit. To me, if you can't recruit, you can't coach, because if you can't go get players, you can't. Once you're here, I don't care how good you are, you're not going to outcoach somebody that's got better players than you.
Eddie from Ackworth, he had mentioned what we've all talked about with James Coley and his reputation in South Florida. Says, do you think that part of the reason to hire Josh Crawford was the recruiting in Middle and South Georgia that he brings?
I think that certainly brings something to the table, but also just the overall knowledge of the state of Georgia as a whole, plus the fact that he was so highly recommended by two guys Kirby knows, Tyson Summers and Buster. I'm sure the head coach over at Tech doesn't want to hear that Buster recommended him, but I don't think Buster called up Kirby to recommend him, but I'm sure that when Mike Bobo asked him about him, he told him the truth, so I think
you don't want to get tagged as the guy who's won't let your guys move on.
Yeah, the guy's got some really good recommendations, and he did a good job on the interview, from what I understand. The one thing about our interviews is, I went on some interviews that I was nervous as a whore in church when I went into these places. Now, I mean, you just go in there and you just, but you got to get in there. And I've always said to anybody that's going to do an interview, whatever you're going for, you got to take over the interview right now, because you got to make sure that when you leave, they know all that there is to know about you. And if they don't, it's your own fault. You can't just let the whole thing be driven by the people that are interviewing. But you got to also find out, is it all in the family type? Do they want somebody that's going to blend in? And we've had guys come in here with tremendous backgrounds that got killed in the interview here, because when they got on the board with Kirby and Schumann and all these guys, I mean, it wasn't good. I mean, you don't have to be like that as far as being exactly like them, but you got to be able to draw X and O. You got to be able to do a little bit. But what I was going to say is, he was very articulate, and you could see when he was on this interview, that was good for you to show that day. Guy's good skill level, and you want a guy that can
communicate and win the interview.
You want to be able to communicate in the with your players. I mean, players know right away if you're faking it, if you don't know what the heck you're talking about. I always believe in this in meeting with players. I want to get the players talking. I know what I know. I want to know what they know. You got to get them. You can't go out to practice and have guys make a lot of errors and mistakes. If you're doing that, then you're a poor coach.
To Eddie's question, though, I do think that, Crawford and his relationships will help in South Georgia, but Georgia has a guy from Bainbridge and a guy from Thomasville. I think they know the way around down there.
Oh, yeah. But here's another thing that I think the coaches in the state like, is the fact Kirby 2 different times here has reached out and hired a guy from Carver High School in Del McGee, and with limited college background. I mean, Dell was only at Auburn for a year and Georgia Southern, but Kirby reached out to him to show the coaches he wanted to get one of theirs, and he did the same thing here with Crawford. So these coaches believe in Kirby.
To your point, when you talked about Crawford, how ebullient he came across, jubilant, I don't even know how to say it, but just so commanding in that sound clip you heard. And of course, you get the same thing with James Coley. That clear communication, that command, if you will, that take over the interview, that also has the same thing when you're on the recruiting trail and you're talking to a kid, you're talking to his parents. You got to be a good communicator there. You got to be a good communicator when you're coaching these kids up. So I think that that's strong. But you don't want that guy who mumbles a lot, who's not sure of himself. I mean, this guy comes across as, having that type of personality, and it's going to suck because he's a great interview. So's Coley. And we're never going to get to talk to him.
Here's the point. Oh, he will eventually there at the bowl game. But you got some good feeling today about Kirby, what Kirby said about Coley, what Kirby said. But I will say this. The other thing Kirby does, which I like, he brings these guys, he puts them on the whiteboard, and and do that. But he also goes through a home visit with them and says, "Okay, I'm a high school coach. You come in there to talk to me. Tell me how you're gonna. What's your MO? How do you do it? What are you doing here? How do you
hypothetical recruiting?
Yeah. Do you go in and how do you do with the let's just say, what do you do when you meet the athletic director? What do you do when you meet the guidance counselor? What do you do when you meet the principal? What happens when you got a situation where they don't like Georgia? What happens when you got a situation where you're having to go in there and mend some fences? All these things, and see how they react.
Jesus,
That's good. You don't want to take a flyer on that.
I couldn't work for Kirby. There's no way.
Yeah, you wouldn't pass a blood test.
Last question from the vent, and we somewhat alluded to this, which surprised me, but Bulldog Guy says, Coach, I never heard your take on the Kirk Herbstreit, Dylan Raiola, Dominic Raiola situation.
I don't know to what extent what Kirk said. I know he came back with a rebuttal on that, but for the fans, they said that Raiola's dad said that Kirk encouraged him to go there. He might have, but I guarantee you, not the expense of leaving here. He wouldn't burn that bridge here with Kirby. There's no way. So, but I'm sure that Raiola's dad was glad to see that Kirk had the feeling that Nebraska could make it, and they might. They could. He might be the guy to get them over the hump. But ever since they left the Big 8, Big 12. They had like 8 straight losing seasons now, or I don't even know what it is, but they just don't have the player pool out there. Nebraska, I mean, have you ever had to drive across the state of Nebraska? I mean,
I've never been to the state of Nebraska.
Hey,
it's
I'll
not
put you this way, Coach.
good people up there, but you don't see them when you're driving across it. I mean, there's not many that. It's a very desolate area, and there's just not enough. Like, sometimes you got to go 8 hours before you see a recruit. I mean,
I was talking to a kid. Okay, so if my son's 19, about to be 20, this kid would be 17 or 18. He's a year younger than my boy. And he was asking me something about Raiola going to Nebraska. Why would he go to Nebraska? And I'm like, well, it's an up-and-coming program. They're trying to get back on their feet. He goes, when were they good? So you had a 17, 18-year-old kid out there that doesn't remember that Nebraska was a powerhouse. And I thought, how do you not know this? And I thought about it.
94, 95. I mean, I'm
like, shit, yeah, this before you were born. And there are a lot of schools that can fall into that. If you've been off the map for a long time, you were not in the roundhouse of a top 50 kid, top 100 kid, top 150 kid. They're like, Nebraska, they don't see you as Tom Osborne's Nebraska like we might, and there's a lot of schools that is a danger. So
if you mentioned the Big 12 conference now, without Oklahoma and Nebraska and Texas, who are you going to mention right now? If you mention the Big 10, now you got those other teams coming in, those 4 from the Pac-12. I mean, Nebraska's it's got a long way to go to even be in the area code talent-wise of those other schools. I mean, right. You got those 4, and then you got Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State, and then they got a long way to go.
I'll put it to you this way: we've had Kirk Herbstreit on this show. I know you and him text a lot. Y'all are friends, but objectively, having seen him on our shows and having dealt with the Raiolas, I'm going to go with Kirk Herbstreit's version of events.
Exactly. He got you can't be you can't have the credibility and you go into a coach's meeting as many times as we're playing on TV and all, and then all of a sudden expect Kirby to show any confidence in you if you're doing something like that. You just can't.
Well, and plus, I've been around enough of the national media folk when they come in for things around my day job. They don't care who wins these games. They do a job. Kirk Herbstreit's flying around the country every day of the week during the football season, preparing for game after game after game after game. The only thing that he wants is an entertaining product, because that's what makes it more fun.
When Ohio State plays Michigan, they'll be an ex-Ohio State player. But you're right.
That one's different, but all the rest of them.
But he wants to be right. He wants to be able to give good insight. And when people say, "Oh, he called that ahead of time," he explained that well.
I guarantee you one thing: if he did that, when he asked me anything else about Georgia, I would never tell him dog shit.
I mean, Coach, but I guess what I'm saying, you called a lot of games for ESPN. You've called a lot of games on TV, on radio. Did you ever really, other than, I guess, if it was Georgia or Marshall involved or Oklahoma, did you ever really care who won the game?
When Oklahoma State was playing, I did.
Those poor Cowboys never get a break from you.
I didn't really. You're right. So, well, hey, that's good. So that's a good point.
All right, well, with that, we will wrap the show. We appreciate everybody jumping on with us on it.
Can I tell a joke?
Oh, yeah. Sorry about it. Go ahead, Coach.
I told this joke a few years ago, but this guy reminded me of it, and I just think it's a really good joke for everybody, especially tonight when Georgia's, to me, we got to be really happy about our football team. I want to congratulate Jamie Hunt. First of all, Coach Manuel Diaz, what a great career he had, but Jamie Hunt taking his place is going to be good. It's going to be good for the tennis team. But anyhow, there's this guy in Arkansas that no matter what, he's always bragging about everybody knew who he was. And you've seen people that just do that all the time. And so this one guy just got mad and said, "Look," he said, I bet you $5,000 that Bill Clinton doesn't know who you are. He said, "Let's go right over there. He's probably over at Hot Springs right now." So they drive over there, and there's some security around, but they just go right in there. And Bill Clinton gets up and starts running up. He says, "Hey, there's old John Doggett from Hot Springs, Arkansas. Glad to see you, John." He said, "Nice to see you too, Bill." He said, "God, I can't believe this." He said, "I tell you what, I bet you $10,000 that Joe Biden doesn't know you." He said, "No problem." So they flew up to Washington, and this guy noticed that they went right through the security, went right through up to the Oval Office, and Joe Biden's kind of sleepy up there, but he sees him and he runs over. "There's old John Doggett from Hot Springs, Arkansas. Glad to see you." He said, "Hey, Joe, good to see you too." And this guy just can't believe it. So he finally says, "Hey, I'll bet you $25,000 that the Pope doesn't know you." He said, "Okay, we'll go." So they go over to the Vatican, and they get there, and there's about 250,000 people out there waving and screaming and all. So this guy says, "Look," John tells him, "Look, we got the best security in the world up there. And, if I get up there close to him, you'll know that I know him. I just can't get you up through all this security." He said, "Okay." So about 5 minutes later, everybody starts cheering even more because John's right beside the Pope. He's just waving to everybody. And so finally, this guy's really mad, and he looks at this tagging guy beside him. He said, "Do you know who that guy is up there?" He said, "Well, I don't know who that guy in the white robe is, but that guy beside him, John Doggett from Hot Springs, Arkansas."
I forgot that joke. Now I remember it. That's
it's
one of the best of all time.
It's a good joke.
That's
That is one of the best of all time.
I'm going to tell you right now, it's good to be a Georgia Bulldog. I mean, I'm just so happy for Dale and happy for Coley too. I'm happy for him.
Yeah, there's two good guys.
And I'm happy for B-Mac, and I'm looking forward to meeting Crawford. I mean, all of that, but it's just we got a lot to be thankful for with Georgia Bulldogs.
Yep. This week that we got the combine, and I guess we're 2 weeks away from spring practice starting.
Hey, watch out for this baseball team too. The hot start they're off to. Softball's great. I mean, some of these spring sports, things are looking up.
Today's Tuesday, so yeah, we're exactly 2 weeks away from spring practice. So we'll finish up with the combine, and then the first day of spring practice is March 12th. The next day is the Georgia Pro Day. So
we got 2 weeks. 2 weeks to spring.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess they go on spring break next week.
Spring break's next week.
Mamma mia, I like to hear that. I love it.
So, well, the new coaches will have to hit the ground running. And again, shout out to Del McGee and Brian McClendon and all the service they put in the University of Georgia. They won you 2 championships. You'll never, that can never be taken away from you. So, with that, we will take off, and we will see you folks next week. Well, it should be back to our normal time next Tuesday.
We're not going to take spring break.
Oh no, spring. I guarantee Kirby will be talking in noon next Tuesday. So
Yeah, we'll do whatever we want to do, baby.
we might have to do another night show.
Hey, whatever we got to do.
All right. We'll see what the schedule, how the schedule turns out, and hopefully we'll be back next Tuesday, maybe next Tuesday evening, so we can. Hopefully we'll get to see. They'll let us in for the first part of practice. I know they did it at Auburn, so check out that when you get a chance. Check out the Auburn video was interesting today. If you had a chance to watch it.
Auburn practice today?
Yep.
They did. They did. Okay.
Yeah, we've actually put up a video at UGASports.com. Our sister site, Auburn Sports, was actually there, and they were able to videotape some of it, so you can kind of see what's going on over there. So check them out when you get a chance. Hopefully, we'll get
to calling the plays.
Well, it wasn't as spicy as you thought. I thought it could be.
Okay. We just lost this basketball game by 1 point. I can't believe it. We had the ball and couldn't score. But that's the way it goes.
66-67. Georgia had 15 seconds left, and they come up short. Just story of the year. All right, folks. We'll talk to you next week.